an hour earlier at 8 o'clock.
Whatever.
Let's look at how the mother handled it in this role play. Apparently she's upset, but she's holding herself together. You know, she's not, it doesn't seem to me like she's taking it as a personal attack upon her, that Jenna's coming home late, and that it's not a thing between her and Jenna. It's a thing between Jenna and Jenna's commitments. This is a thing between Jenna and her responsibilities. This is not a parent-child conflict. It's a child responsibility conflict. And I think the mother tries to keep it that way. I really like the way that she connects the consequence to the problem. You know, the problem is you came home an hour late. That means next week you come home an hour early. As a parent, you might be saying, big deal. Well, it's a start. Then after that, it's 2 hours. Then you're stuck for Friday night. Then we're working on Saturday night. In other words, we're taking these little incremental steps, except instead of taking everything at once. When you take everything at once, what happens is you desensitize the child. You make it a parent-child conflict. It's Jenna's responsibility to get home. As a parent, you have a right to expect compliance with that, but it's her responsibility. And if she doesn't comply, then she's got to deal with not meeting her responsibility, not with not dealing, with disappointing you as a parent. I'd also like to comment that it's very important that the parent not get sucked into the kid's low-level obnoxious behavior. So that you can see Jenna showing emotion, being upset, talking down to her mother. At the end, she says, whatever, and walks out of the room. It's really important for parents to understand that when you give your kids consequences, they don't like you. They don't like it. A big trap parents fall into is I'm gonna give you the consequence and then I want you to tell me that you still like me or still love me. That's unnatural. It's weird, Let the kid be angry. Let her deal with her own anger and frustration. Don't get sucked into those side arguments. We dealt with the curfew. Now we move on to the next thing. In this video, we're gonna look at what happens when a kid becomes verbally abusive.
Ryan! I told you to pick up your clothes and towels. I am not your maid.
God, why are you such a bitch?
Hey! I am sick of your mouth. You go to your room. Now! Ryan, you're in your room. Take out the earphones. You're in your room for the rest of the night for talking to me that way.
So we have another situation here where there's a parent who's frustrated, tired of telling her kid to do things over and over. And, she responds to him by yelling downstairs to him and screaming at him. You can see the frustration. You can hear it in her voice. By the way, so can he hear it in her voice. And then, she's giving him instructions and asking him questions. And he's not even there. He's walking up the stairs. Then he becomes verbally abusive. And make no mistake about it, if a kid curses at you or calls you a name, that's verbal abuse. Don't kid yourself, all right? Verbal abuse is when somebody disrespects you and curses at you, especially if it's someone for whom you're supposed to have authority over. When he becomes verbally abusive, that becomes the priority. Now, mom, as a reaction to that, sends him to his room. Telling the kid he's in the room for the night, and while he's still listening to his iPod, is not very effective. It doesn't help the kid learn from what he did. It has nothing to do with the verbal abuse, and it doesn't right any wrong. It doesn't make any amends. I mean, the questions I have are, the next time the kid wants to curse you, what is he gonna do? What is he gonna do with those feelings? The problem is not why he cursed at her. The problem is what's he gonna do differently next time? The effective consequence gets him to look at that and to make some statement or do some work around that. So let's say you're that kid and you're sitting in a room and you've just cursed at your mother and you're annoyed with her and angry and frustrated with her, and she comes into the room and she tells you to pay attention, and you turn around and you only take one plug out of the earplug. What are you saying to your mother? And this mother is so encapsulated, still so angry, she can't pick up on that. All right, so she's just saying at him what the consequences are for what he did. There's no involvement with him. He's not forced to learn anything. He's not forced to make amends for anything. He's just in his room for the rest of the night, listening to his iPod and playing with his computer. That may be a consequence, but it's not effective. He doesn't learn anything from it.
Ryan, take out the earphones. Give me the iPod. You are grounded to this room until you write me a letter of apology and you explain to me what you will do differently the next time you feel like cursing at me.
In this scenario, the mother sends him to his room where she can organize herself. She's been verbally abused. This may or may not be the first time it happens, but she's taken a minute to think about, what do I want to accomplish here? And she goes into the room, and the first thing she does is she gets him to unplug the iPod. And when he doesn't pull out the other plug, she just says, hand me the iPod. That gets his attention, you know, like when that kid is sitting there still listening to music with one plug in his ear, and many kids do that, this is a sign that this is no big deal to the kid, and he's still going to disrespect you. So taking the iPod is very good. She calmly tells him what the consequence is, that he has to tell her in writing what he's going to do differently the next time he has those feelings. Because let's face it, kids feel like calling their parents names. People feel like calling other people names all the time. People feel like being disrespectful. People feel like being abusive. But the vast majority of us don't. We do something different. We deal with our feelings maturely. And so what she wants him to think about is, how is he going to deal with his feelings more maturely? And he's got to write that into a letter for her. And believe me, when the letter's done, he reads it to her. He just doesn't give it to her. He sits down and he reads it to her, and she processes it with him and questions him about it. So this way, he's really held accountable in a pretty thorough way, and that it becomes a very serious matter, and that he has to think about what he's going to do differently next time. That, to me, is a much more effective way of dealing with the verbal abuse. Now we're going to take a look at a parent-child situation involving homework.
So, Jenna, I got an email from Mrs. Wright, your geometry teacher. She told me you didn't hand your geometry homework in, you didn't do it.
She gives so much homework. There's like no way I can get it all done. I'll do it sometime this weekend.
Oh, you'll do it this weekend, all right, because you are not going out.
Mom, it's just stupid geometry proofs. I can get them done tomorrow morning.
No, you'll get them done this weekend because you are not going out on Saturday or Sunday.
Are you kidding me? That is so unfair.
I don't care if it's unfair or not. You're getting your homework done.
Now, in that role play, what we see is a mother who gets frustrated about the homework, and then she escalates the situation. She gets louder, she gets more demanding, she gets more threatening, and you know, the kid makes the usual kid excuse, they do it too much, I didn't have enough time, and then this parent starts reacting and winds up overreacting. And this becomes a problem then between the kid and the parent. And that's really not what you want to do in these kind of functional situations. It doesn't seem like the parent has any kind of goal in mind of what she wants to accomplish. She got an email from a teacher. She had plenty of time to think about this. It seems to me she didn't use that time to come up with a constructive consequence of how she could get the kid to take more responsibility. You know, the problem here is not that the kid was disrespectful to the parent. The problem here is that the kid's not taking responsibility for her schoolwork, and it's her responsibility. This shouldn't be dealt with like a parent-child problem. This should be a child responsibility problem, where the parent is actually the limit setter and the coach. The parent is there to say, as a result of your inaction, you won't be able to do this, but also a coach of, so listen, let's get started, let's do it. You know, whenever you take something away from a child, your job is to help them get it back. I mean, that's the whole goal. Where do we want her this weekend? We want her outside doing things with her friends. We want her having fun. We want her work done, and then she starts to play. But we don't want her playing until her work is done. And as far as I can see, this parent did not accomplish that goal.
Jenna, I got an email from your geometry teacher, Mrs. Wright. She said you didn't do your homework, you didn't hand it in.
She gives so much homework. There's like no way I can get it all done. I'll do it sometime this weekend.
You know what the rules are here. This isn't the first time this has happened. You've got to get your homework done before you can go out on Friday night.
I'm supposed to meet Sarah in an hour.
Well, go get your homework done and you still can. I'll check on you in 15 minutes.
Here, the parent shows a lot less frustration and emotion and really deals with it like a business deal. And certainly, a lot of consequences should be dealt with like it's business. Not emotional, not relational, but business. Here's the business. You didn't follow this rule. This is the consequence. Let me help you get it started. So the parent says, look, you didn't get your homework done. And the kid says, well, she gives too much homework. The kid gives all the excuses again. But this time the parent says, well, you know the rules around here. You got to have your homework done. Now, the parent then is taken out of the picture emotionally, and it's the kid dealing with the rules. And remember, compliance with rules are a kid's responsibility. You know, that's the deal. It's our job as parents to set up rules and structure to keep them safe and help them learn. And then it's their responsibility to follow that. And if for some reason they decide they don't want to follow a rule or they don't think something's unfair, it's their responsibility to sit down and talk with you about it. If they want to stay out later, it's their responsibility to talk to you about staying out later, not just staying out later and then talk about it afterwards. So there are ways that kids can negotiate this thing. I really like when the mother says, listen, if you want to go out this weekend, get started now. She's coaching her. She's pushing her along. That's called hurdle help. She's helping her over her anger and to functioning. So kid's frustrated and angry. What do you mean? I'm going out in an hour. Well, then get started now so you can get it done. And I really like the way the mother says, I'll check on you in 15 minutes. Follow-up is very important to any kind of task-oriented consequence. When you have a kid that's going to be working on homework, when you have a kid that's going to be finishing some task, it really is important to let them know that you're going to check in on them in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And when you check in, it's really important that you be positive in your comments and supportive of them. And if they're still angry, that's their problem. You walk away. Their weekend doesn't start until their work is done. And this parent has an effective way of making that happen. Let's take a look at how a parent deals with chores and a manipulative teenager.
Ryan,
What?
didn't I ask you to unload the dishwasher?
I don't remember.
Don't remember? Yes, you remember. Why did you make your brother do it?
'Cause he's lazy and he never has to do anything around here.
You go tell him that you are sorry. Right now.
Now, in this video, we see a parent who tries to identify the problem, but doesn't give a consequence related to it. The problem is that this teenager was manipulative. He didn't do his chore, and then he manipulated somebody else to do it. First of all, the parent says, why? Don't ask kids questions that start with why. Because what you're doing is asking for excuses. It's amazing. I've seen it happen in my office in family sessions. The parent will say, why did you do that? The kid will give the reason. The parent will say, I don't want excuses. But that's what why asks for. So I think keep why out of it, especially if you're dealing with teenagers and especially if you're dealing with people who are manipulative. Focus on what? What happened? That's the question you ask yourself. He had a chore, he didn't do it, he manipulated his brother to do it. And that's what we have to deal with. Also, we have to look at the fact that the kid's looking at his mother like she's a jerk. You know, she says, go say I'm sorry, and he looks at her like, huh, you know, what is that all about? And the thing is that I'm sorry is the most ineffective thing you can get a kid to say. Because again, they don't, you know, what they do is they say, I'm sorry, but I forgot. And I bet this kid uses "I'm sorry" a lot with his mom because it sounds to me like I don't remember, I got somebody else to do it. He's kind of the excuse maker, and excuse makers tend to say "I'm sorry" to end the situation. They never take responsibility. For them, "I'm sorry" is taking responsibility. But in effective parenting, "I'm sorry" doesn't mean anything.
Ryan,
What?
I thought you were going to empty the dishwasher tonight.
I don't remember you telling me that.
Well, not remembering is not going to solve your problem. Your brother did your chore, so now you need to make it better for your brother. What are you going to do?
I don't know what that means.
Okay, well, you didn't do your chore. So there's no TV tonight until you have done your brother's chore. And $1 of your allowance is going to your brother as payment for doing your chore.
In this scenario, you see that the mother is much more effective. First of all, she doesn't let him get away with "I don't remember." She also doesn't start an argument. She just says not remembering is not going to solve your problem. I think that's beautiful. She's putting the problem back on the child. The problem is you didn't do your chore and you manipulated your brother to do it. "I don't remember" is this kid's first defense. And she doesn't let him get away with that. She says, "I don't remember" is not going to solve your problem. You're going to have to do your brother's chore. She doesn't ask him why. She doesn't get into that. It's irrelevant, and it's only going to start arguments. She goes right to the solution. The response to that is you're going to have to do your brother's chore because you manipulated him into doing your chore. And not only that, but you're going to pay him for doing your chore. And so that there's a cost associated, because if he does his brother's chore, then they're even. But even doesn't give him any cost at all. And so what she does, which I think is really important, is she assigns a cost to that. She says, "I'm going to give your brother $1 of your allowance for doing your chore for you." And it clearly links the kid's meeting his responsibilities with the allowance that he gets. He's being asked to right the wrong. All right, you wronged your brother by manipulating him because if it was kept his way, his brother would do 2 chores and he would do none. You manipulated your brother, you wronged him, and to right that wrong, we don't care if he's sorry or not, to right that wrong, you have to do this. And I think that that's what makes this an effective consequence. So let's look at how a parent deals with an unresponsive kid in a dirty room.
Adam, I need to talk to you about your room. Take that out of your ear. Yeah. I need to talk to you about your room.